If you're a guy and you're trying to make a self-portrait, let's be honest, it is awkward, weird. Luckily for y'all though, I'm making this video and I'm giving you my 5 biggest tips to make better self-portraits if you are a guy. Now technically all of these tips can apply to anyone out there, but my audience after all is 92% men, so I figured why not niche it down and target that specific audience to help you all out. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Evan Ramft. I'm the founder of moderncreativemoney.com, and this YouTube channel is dedicated to exploring photography ideas, helping photographers make money with their camera, and living a better general creative life. So if that sounds like you, subscribe to the channel. So tip number 1, this is the biggest tip for guys out there photographing themselves, is to create an action. As a guy, it feels a little bit weird to just stare into a camera and put a sultry pose on, if you know what I'm saying. So what you can do to counteract this is to create some type of action in your photo. Do something. That's what I did in the examples in the intro clip for today's video. One of them was me walking towards my 4Runner. I figured this was a shot that showcased the scene, it showcased the car, it showcased me, but it provided something a little less posed. It felt more natural. It felt like me just walking towards the car. And I easily could have made a photo of me walking away from the car as well. I also did this with the image of me leaning up against the car. I was looking at my camera like I was scrolling through photos, because once again, I don't need to be staring directly at the camera. I need to be doing something, and I'm still capturing myself in a unique way. And if you're someone who feels awkward and feels weird in front of a camera, this is a very easy way to counteract those feelings. Instead of focusing on the fact that you are being photographed, focus on just doing whatever it is that you're doing and hope that the camera captures it. Now that leads to the second tip that I want to talk about, which is utilizing the interval timer on your camera. You see, one big mistake a lot of people make is thinking that they need to use the timer on their camera for individual shots, meaning they have to set their camera to a 2-second, 10-second timer, hit the shutter, and walk out in front of their camera and strike a pose that doesn't feel awkward. Now, almost every camera has an interval timer setting. What an interval timer does is it allows you to set an interval inside the camera, so it makes photos each segmented interval time that you give it. So on my Leica SL2, I like to set the interval timer to 3 seconds. So when I'm making self-portraits, I set that timer to 3 seconds, and then I go perform whatever actions I'm doing out in front of the camera. So I might make 30, 40, 50 photos and then go through and select the one that looks best. Just set your camera to that interval timer, go out, do what you're doing, act natural, and you'll eventually get a shot that looks good. Now the third piece of advice I have for y'all centers around the clothes that you choose to wear for your self-portraits. Now, what you wear in your day-to-day life, that is up to you. I literally do not care how you dress. But when it comes to your self-portraits, I do care, because I want to make sure that you are creating readable photos. And what I mean by readable photos is maximizing the amount of attention you are getting in your image. You want to stand out. You want to pop off the screen or pop off the page and make sure that people see you. So when you're making a photo of yourself, think about the backdrop. Think, is this going to be a very busy scene? Is this going to be a scene that has a lot of black or a lot of white or a lot of a certain color in this scene? And think about what clothes you can wear to complement this scene and make sure you stand out and pop off against this backdrop. I actually made a little bit of a mistake in the photos that I made in the introduction on today's video. For those photos, I wore a green hoodie that is made by the brand Cuts, but my 4Runner is also a green color. So in those photos, I kind of blend in to the car a little bit. It would have been better for me to wear this color hoodie or a hoodie that complemented that green pretty well. I think this pink looks pretty good against green. That's why I wore it for this video, so I stand out against this backdrop. You want to apply the exact same concept to your self-portraits. If you're somewhere that has an extremely busy background, maybe you're somewhere that has a bunch of patterns or a bunch of zigzag lines, you don't want to wear a shirt that has a bunch of zigzag lines on it as well, because you are going to get lost in that backdrop. Now, with all that being said, this is a great opportunity to thank the sponsor on today's video, Cuts. Cuts is a brand that I wear in every single YouTube video that I make and every single Instagram post, because they do exactly what I just got done talking about. They allow me to look good on camera with simple designs that fit well and personally I think make me look pretty good. I feel confident when I wear these clothes. And you can take advantage of cuts as well by going to the link in the description down below today and saving yourself 15%, or you can use code EvanRamped at checkout to also save that 15%. And Cuts has a variety of different styles for every taste out there. If you're someone like me, you might like the elongated cut. It's more of an athletic fit. It fits tight in the sleeves, tight in the chest, but it goes a little bit lower than a standard t-shirt would. Or if you're someone who's more into like a boxy, relaxed fit, Cuts recently introduced one of their newest t-shirts that I wore in a recent video, and I absolutely love those as well. Or if you're someone who is trying to dress up your wardrobe going into this winter, Cuts has a variety of different hoodies available. This is my personal favorite right here, but you can check out all the different designs that they have through that link in the description down below. And Cuts doesn't only offer hoodies and t-shirts, they offer pants, they offer shorts, they offer a women's line as well, and they have accessories. And all of these products live up to an extremely high standard in quality, fit, and materials, and that is why they're a sponsor on this channel. So if you want to look good in your self-portraits and you don't know where to start, check out that link in the description down below and save yourself 15% on Cuts, and you can use code EvanRamped at checkout if you want to save that 15% as well. Thank you to Cuts for sponsoring today's video. The fourth piece of advice that I have for y'all today is making sure you're using the proper camera settings. Now, there's one camera setting that is important when it comes to self-portraits, and that is your autofocus. You want to make sure the autofocus on your camera is set to person, face, eye tracking, some type of tracking that follows a subject. If you're using that interval timer method, you're going to be moving in and out of your shot, you're going to be moving in and out of the frame, and you want to make sure that your camera can capture you the best way that it can. Now, most cameras have an autofocus setting that can keep up with this, but one thing that you can do to make it a little bit easier for your camera is to make sure that your aperture is set a little bit higher than you normally would. When I made the photos on the intro for today's video, I made sure to set my aperture to 4.5. I did this because I wanted to make sure the camera had enough depth of field to really capture me and make sure that I was sharp, and I didn't have to worry about the autofocus being perfect. Now, if you are going to set yourself up for a self-portrait and you're not going to be moving, you know you're going to be static, you can probably set your aperture to something lower and take advantage of all the technology we have in our cameras and still get a really cool shallow depth of field type photo. But if you're going to be moving around, I recommend making sure that your aperture is just a little bit higher to make things easier. Now, the fifth and final piece of advice I have for y'all today involves editing. When you're editing your self-portraits, you want to make sure you're doing editing techniques that highlight you as the subject of the photo. When someone views your self-portrait, you want to make sure they look directly at you. So some of my personal favorite techniques to do this are using the graduated filters and the radial filters in Lightroom. Now, what these filters do is they allow you to be creative with how the light is interpreted in an image. So in our early examples, when I'm standing next to the truck, I put a graduated filter at the bottom of the image and I dropped the exposure. I did this intentionally so the bottom of the scene isn't really important. There's not much light going on there, and your eye naturally goes more towards the center of the photo, which is the truck and me, and that is what I want people to see in that image. In the second example, when I'm standing next to the car and I'm looking at my camera, I put a graduated filter in the bottom of the photo and darkened that piece of the image because, once again, it's not important. And then I added a radial filter over me as the subject, and I raised the exposure slightly so your eye naturally goes to the center of this image. Now, if you find yourself not wanting to deal with these graduated filters or radial filters, a simple thing you can do is add a little bit of vignette to your image. This will darken up the corners of your photo, and your eye will go more towards the center of the image, which is what you want. You are the subject of your photo after all, and you want to make sure that that is where people's eyes are going to, and you're isolating yourself by using vignetting or using these graduated or radial filters.